I don't even know what it's about. Sweet Baby Inc. Let's
This
go.
person working at Kotaku wrote an article about Sweet Baby Inc. Of course, I spoke to the team at Sweet Baby and infiltrated the Discord group, rallying against them to try to paint a cleaner picture of what the fuck is going on. So by infiltrated, what they're really trying to say is that she joined the Discord group. So Sweet Baby Inc. doesn't do what some gamers think it does. No, one company isn't forcing diversity into all of your favorite games. This is the person here who wrote the article. Does the article mention anything about the Sweet Baby Inc. CEO being a full-blown racist? Because I have a feeling this article doesn't mention it. And then they say this: hi, you can't be racist against white people. Thanks for tuning in. Nobody thinks this is true. No real people think this is true. This is something that only morons think. It doesn't matter how much that you repeat the message. It's very obvious that it's not true. Yeah, they do? Oh, yeah, of course they do. Well, unless it's somebody being racist against them, at which point they'll probably come up with an excuse of why it's actually not okay after all. People like that are a plague in gaming. Well, they're a plague, period. And I'm really glad to see everybody is shitting on her for this, because this is basically a person who is making, what do you call it? They're making light of people that are being racist. Obviously, you can be racist against white people. The only people who don't think that's true are people who are racist. That's all there is to it.
Pretty much.
There's literally no other... There's no other way to look at it. This company is just simply a symptom of a problem. It's not like this company is forcing this stuff into the games. The companies are willfully inviting this company in to force it even more. The companies are the ones that are agreeing with them. The companies are the ones paying Sweet Baby. So if you're mad at these people at this company, I totally understand it. You have every right to be upset about it. But the reality is that this is not one of the four horsemen here. Like, the reality is that this is a systemic thing that's happening all across gaming. And if Sweet Baby Inc. went, you know, they decided to close the business tomorrow, this problem wouldn't go away because it's systemic. And so the thing is that she's right. And if you go through, let me go back and see. So she joined the group to encourage people to avoid these games because the group had deemed SBI was pushing a woke agenda by working towards greater diversity, equity, and inclusion. Yeah, that's basically what people think. Yeah, it's about that. And let's see here. A 2023 Kiwi... the Steam group now has over 100,000 followers in its own Discord, boasts nearly 2,000 members, but its ire against Sweet Baby Inc. and its diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives in general isn't new. October 2023, Kiwi Farms posts a similar sentiment. So what they're doing right here is, so Kiwi Farms is like just basically a, you know, like it's a lolcow website where they just like have different threads about different content creators, etc. And they don't like different people. So what she's trying to do here is that she's trying to compare them to a group that is already seen in a negative light by, and then by extension of that, make them look like they are also those same people. Because there are a lot of people that have negative feelings about companies like Sweet Baby Inc. But why is it that they compared her explicitly to Kiwi Farms? Well, it's very simple. It's because that's the one that people that watch and read these articles will think, oh, it's like Kiwi Farms, that means it's bad. You see what I'm saying? The conversation around Sweet Baby Inc. has ignited a fundamentally misinformed Gamergate firestorm as employees have faced rampant harassment as a direct result. Disagreement is not harassment. Whenever you have a company that the existence of the company is in direct service of pushing an agenda, and people say, I don't want your agenda, you're not being harassed. You're being disagreed with. Nobody supports actual harassment. But whenever people are disagreeing and saying you're full of shit, get the fuck out of video games, that's not harassment. That's people disagreeing with what you're doing. I don't think anybody supports genuine harassment. Downvotes or hate. Yeah, people. You're being rejected. People don't agree with that. Industry figures have had to deny allegations that SBI comes in and completely changes their games. And this is also I think this is kind of a red herring. I think the entire Sweet Baby thing is a red herring in itself. Because as I said before, this is a systemic problem in video games in general. This has nothing to do, like they are simply a symptom of the disease. So if they get removed and nobody uses them anymore, they go out of business, this problem will not go away and nothing will change. You see what I'm saying?
Why is that the picture that he's
I spoke with several employees to learn what the company actually does and how the misunderstanding of its role in the industry highlights a far broader problem. What do bad actors think companies like Sweet Baby do? Suicide Squad falling short of expectations, directly responsible for those failures, not the studios that employed them in the first place, because the content Sweet Baby allegedly forces into the games. Yeah, let's see here. It's absolutely not true. Wouldn't be portrayed as a white woman. It's not true. Yeah, and I think that this is...
I'm just going to read this one here. The prevailing theory is that if it weren't Sweet Baby, Saga Anderson would have been portrayed by a white woman. Is that true? What is possible to say? What does it matter? Okay, right, so I see. So basically, they're just crying because
the problem is not with...
Finally moved off that image. Yeah, I know, right? So basically, they're just crying because Sweet Baby ain't come in and, like, whatever the agenda is, like whether it's a race thing or whatever, they just kind of encourage games to include that agenda in it. Like, I feel like he's literally, like, dodging the exact thing that they do, and it's really annoying because I kind of want to hear exactly what it is everyone's mad at. But yeah, so basically people are just annoyed that games and movies are getting ruined by, like, various different agendas. So I'm guessing, like, having gay people in it, having trans, having different races and stuff like that. I guess that's all that it is, really.
With Sweet Baby, it's with the actual development studios being infested by people that want to use video games as a tool to spread a message that the people that play the games and buy them don't want to hear. That's the real reason. That's the actual problem. Sweet Baby is like a secondary effect of that that makes that easier. Sweet Baby is like a force multiplier for this behavior, but it is not where it comes from. It comes from inside these companies. And Sweet Baby is just simply being hired to make that force even more strong and even more powerful. You see what I'm saying? My evidence, a fucking tweet? Well, I think this is good evidence, right? I mean, this is the person that works at a company and he's saying it's not true. Yeah, there you go. Even games that are widely considered to be successes are not safe from those conspiracy theories. Well, let's be honest, though. Alan Wake 2, I don't think, has made a profit, so it's important to keep in mind. Let's see here. 2K members already infiltrated.
Hey, Weed, how are
So,
you?
what is this here? Okay, so this girl apparently got into the... What is this?
No.
She got into the Discord group, and almost 2K members, there are already a bunch of infiltrated people here screenshotting everything, sadly. So just keep it cool, brothers. We can't let this server or the Steam group get taken down. That's all I ask. Keep it cool. There's a post from March 4th, which was shared again on March 5th. Several people in the Discord expressed concerns about glowies, a term coined by the far right for those suspected of being federal law enforcement officers or informants in attempting to infiltrate their online spaces and set up for legal consequences. Yes, that is true. I think that's, yeah,
So confused
basically,
what's
right?
even happening.
Let's see here.
I'm like
All right.
really struggling to follow this
I think
article
that in
that
general,
he's
like,
reading.
there's a lot of overlap, but it's not necessarily that. So let's see here.
Glowing's
Adds race and identity quotas to everything that they're involved with. Sweet Baby isn't forcing diversity, it's happening naturally. Well, I don't think that it's happening naturally.
No, I don't
Because if
think
it was
it
happening
is.
naturally, you wouldn't see massive pushback to it. That implies that it's not natural. So I don't think it's happening naturally, but it's happening from the companies themselves. Sweet Baby
I
is
think the
not
only
doing it.
reason that companies are doing these like agendas is because like where each like group, so like let's say you got the LGBTQIA plus group, or you've got like the fuller body, like body positivity for like larger people kind of idea as well. So obviously you've got all the different kind of like areas that people try to push agendas. I'm trying to avoid saying race because that's like an obvious one we've had for a long time. So trying to like think of like the new current like trendy ones, and their like communities are so loud that it makes people think or like that's what the majority is. So then in order for them to stay trendy and current, they have to keep those agendas in their shows. Like, how many movies do you watch where there is not a gay person in it. And don't get me wrong, that's not me hating or slamming on gay people, obviously. This is just my point is, it will always be put in everything you watch. In fact, I watched a TV show where 90% were gay, or bisexual or whatever. And it was like, there were like hardly any straight people in it. But I think that he's right in saying it's not natural, it's not happening naturally, because the only reason it feels like the companies need to do that is because like agenda type people, like people who are like fighting for an agenda, they tend to be louder. So they'll protest and they'll be more forceful with their opinions, which forces the non-agenda people to be quieter because they don't want to get the hate from it. And it kind of morphs the size of the following for that particular agenda. Do you know what I mean? So like there are more people that believe that healthy bodies are better than obese bodies. But because there's like an agenda fighting for body empowerment and you can be whatever size you want to be, which obviously you can, it's just not healthy to do so, so you shouldn't, but you can. So when it comes to looks and stuff, it doesn't matter. When it comes to health, obviously it does. But because the body positivity agenda is so like big and loud, anybody who says anything against it will get in trouble for saying that. And so therefore they won't say anything at all, which implies that the body positivity is like allowing people to be overweight more, or kind of say that it's a condition that they're overweight and it's not their fault that they're overweight, you know, when they do that kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, I think it kind of morphs it, because those who don't agree can't say anything because they'll get hate for it. So companies just kind of feel like they have to put all these agendas in to keep with the current trends, even though less people think that, they're still technically the minority. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if those words even made any sense. I was at uni, but the underground was up service, had to wait for a while. Ah, bless you, Wee. How's things going with the girl? Hey, Wolf, how are you doing? You've already been asked. I'm good. I'll be in and out today. Going to be watching Supernatural. Ah, cute. That is a good show. But Finney's better. You're cute.
It themselves. No one would care if it was natural. Yes, exactly. And so I think that the fact that you're writing this article implies that it's unnatural. And I think that everybody sees that. Let me see here. Any marginalized group can offer up content that's based on their identity. Is incredibly frustrating for the team and for marginalized industry members at large. People can't imagine what we might do anything else but diversity, equity, inclusion. They can't imagine that we're just talented writers. Well, yeah, the reason why people can't imagine that is because you're not. That's the reason why this is a problem in the first place. That's true, actually. That's probably the only part that is true. People can't imagine that you're a talented writer. Well, if they could, that'd be the only thing they could do, because they can't see it. They can't imagine the work that I did in Spider-Man was the story work versus adding pride flags, you know? Yeah, sure. Let's see here. Sweet Baby and other industry leaders suggest that this dogged insistence on believing one company is forcibly injecting diversity into games is a side effect on a widespread misunderstanding of how games are actually made. Here, nobody cares how games are made. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares what the process is. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if people are buying a game, they're not happy with the game, then that's the only thing that really matters. Now, whether Sweet Baby is making them do this or not is irrelevant. The end result is that people are getting games that they feel like are heavy-handed in the way that these games promote and spread messaging. They just don't agree with the way that the games are made. They don't like seeing these things in games. They don't like these political statements being made in games. They find it to be, what's the word? Unnatural and forced.
It's
That's
just
just the way
irrelevant,
it is.
isn't it?
So if you're unhappy about that...
Thank you for the follow. I find it just, like, irrelevant. Like, there's just no need for it. Like, could you imagine if you made orcs in a fantasy game and then you needed to make sure that in the game, like, that the orcs had different skin tones to make sure they included that there was racial diversity, and that you had some gay orcs and some orcs who didn't know what their gender was, and you had some orcs who were midgets and you had some orcs who were overweight. Like, it's irrelevant to the point. That's not what an orc is. An orc is an orc. They look like orcs. Like, do you know what I mean? That's it. And it's like in video games, when they start forcing all that in, it's like you can see that it's forced because you like it's not.
All right, sweet cheese.
Hey, Marcus. Okay, oh, Mr. Marcus, you're so funny. How are you? But yeah, like that's the problem because it doesn't matter if there was a girl and she liked other girls, it doesn't matter. You don't need to be shown that she likes other girls. Let's say you had a girl called Jane, right? But Jane's never going to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. It's not part of her story. She's just a warrior princess or something. I don't know, whatever. And then you got John over there. Like St. John, he's like warrior prince, right? But they're never going to get together. They're just two warriors. It doesn't need to be shown that she is gay and that's why she's not getting with him. It doesn't need to be shown that she likes girls because it's irrelevant to the warriorness of what her role is. So as soon as you start interjecting all these things, it's like you can tell that they're only putting it in there to prove that they are okay with it. Like, which I think kind of counters it. Like, they always say, like, it's supposed to be all about equality. But I think if you have to force something like that down everyone's throat to kind of make a point of it, then it's not about equality. It's they're trying to raise it higher. Do you know what I mean? Fortunately, the world we live in now, it wouldn't surprise me if Disney made another Little Mermaid with the role of a bloke. No, because blokes they're not powerful anymore, don't forget. Everyone needs to be a woman. Like, it only counts if you're a woman. Like, you have to be... Go power. I'll give you, for instance, like when they did The Little Mermaid and they recast The Little Mermaid as not a pure white redhead, right? The only reason they did that was for the racial agenda. That is the only reason they did that. Do you know what I mean? Because there was no need to do that. They could have taken any actress who auditioned for it, stuck a red wig on her. You could have had somebody like, not Amanda Heard, because, you know what I mean, like, she's, like, not allowed to go anywhere. Go away, Amanda Heard. But look at how Amanda Heard looked in Aquaman. Perfect. Like, and she looked just like Ariel. You could make any actress look like that. There was no need to change what Ariel looked like. The only reason they did it was for the racial agenda. And I just think when you do that, you're just trying to prove something. Whereas they could have just made a new movie, a new princess movie that wasn't a copy of one that was already there, and then they could have had that beautiful girl who was the actress for the live action one. She could have done her own movie, and then nobody would have even batted an eye that she wasn't a white girl with red hair. The only reason it mattered that she was a white girl with red hair, she wasn't a white girl with red hair, is because they deliberately changed it. They should just make new movies and stop. You can you can taste it when it's shoved down your throat, which I think makes it less equal because you're kind of trying to raise the bar up. Whereas if it was equal, we just all wouldn't care. Do you know what I mean? Like, we wouldn't care. I don't care if somebody's gay. Like, I don't care if somebody was born a man. But if I have to praise somebody who was born a man for now not being a man, it's not equal anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't need to be forced. And like, if they're saying that this one company is like the reason for it being in video games, it's not, because it's in everything. It's everywhere you go. Like, do you know what I mean? And then you're not allowed to say boo about it, because then that makes you a hater. And it's like, no, you just don't need to have it shoved in your face all the time. Like, where it doesn't necessarily belong. Like I said, like, you just don't need to mention these things. It just doesn't need to be done. So I don't really get why anybody's trying to say that this one company is like the reason the video games are becoming too woke and blah, 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 blah. Because if that were the case, it wouldn't be in movies and TV shows, because this has nothing to do with that. This is only video games. Like, it's everywhere in our culture now.
That's fine. You can disagree. That's okay. What messaging? It's inauthentic. Yes, exactly. It's inauthentic. And people don't trust these developers to make a story that's actually good on its own, because there's so much of a focus in Western media of making sure that entertainment media reinforces existing social norms. And I think that's a fundamental problem, and that every single thing in Western entertainment media has to be some sort of allegory to a real life issue, and you can't actually have bad characters in a lot of these stories whenever the characters could have some certain actual real bad traits, like for example being racist or sexist or something like that. So yeah, the people that are writing this article unironically think that you can't be racist against white people, and they have some sort of like, they're basically saying that what these people are saying on their Twitter accounts is okay. So to me, like, whenever I see somebody thinks this is kind of like astrology. Whenever I find out that somebody believes in astrology, I automatically take everything that they say less seriously. Because I realize that, like, I am now dealing with a defective decision maker. This is somebody who is not a logical thinker. They're not a rational person. So anything that they say or do...
I think like that all the time. My one would be astrology, and the other one would be when people believe in the supernatural. Like, I just can't help but think, really? Like, really?
You just can't trust it anymore. I think this is the same thing. Like, this is one of those things where if somebody says something like this, I immediately realize, wait a second, oh, it's one of these people. Never mind, let's not take them seriously anymore. Because these people aren't really interested in having a conversation. They're not logical. They don't think rationally. They have dogmatic views on everything. And they're not willing to actually have a conversation. It's ridiculous and immature. Exactly. The sentence invalidated all of their opinions. Yes, it did. And whenever I see a person say stuff like this, I realize that they're just a moron. We should also consider the definition of racism. It's racism typically stipulates from a position of power. You're a boss and you don't like Mexicans, so you don't hire them. Well, that's not the way it works, because if you're found by doing that, you can be sued for discrimination. So, like, that's not really true. Are there people that are racist? Yeah, of course. But if you think that the only people, like, you think there aren't racist Mexicans? Of course there are. Yeah, I mean, what are you talking about? It's just like...
That's like saying, right, so there was this, I can't tell, I had to, like, really code the story to, like, hide the language and stuff like that, obviously. So there is an Indian boy and a black girl in Luca's class, and like, obviously based on this, like, you know, certain, what this person in the chat just said was certain races can't be racist to another one of lower standing, because it's a power thing, right? This, which is like insane, because this little Indian boy bullies this little girl because she's black and uses certain language beginning with N. How an 8-year-old even knows that word, which means they must have heard it from their family. And it's like, these people are kind of almost implying that the only people who could be racist are white people. And it's like, because the Mexicans can't be racist and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, this literally is happening in my son's class, 8 years old. 8 years old, and somebody who is not white is bullying another not white person. Like, do you know what I mean? They're not being bullied by a white person with a racist attack. It's a non-white who's bullying them. Like, so it drives me crazy sometimes when, like, Muppets in chat like that kind of act as if just because you are of colour means you can't be racist. Like, it's only the white people who could be racist. You can't be racist to white people. Only the white people are racist, and people of colour in any way can't be racist because they are already lower status. Do you know what I mean? It's like the dumbest thing ever. No, I have some black friends who are very racist towards Asians. Exactly. So to imply that, like somebody of a lower power standing can't be racist, it's like, that's like insane. Like, anybody could be discriminatory to anybody. It doesn't matter.
Like, again, this type of logic can only exist in an abstract of reality. Because if you actually apply this logic to reality in any sort of a workable way, it immediately falls apart, and you immediately see how completely, how much of a complete double standard this is. And this is kind of like the issue that a lot of these people have, is that all of their logic and all of their philosophy is created in a world that doesn't exist. because they're talking about this on the internet. These are people that are, like fucking terminal internet users. So they don't even have any friends in real life in a lot of cases. They don't know how to act in real life. Probably in high school they were losers. Nobody liked them. And so now they're on Twitter writing articles telling everybody else how they have to act. What is this? If I go to a channel and call them slurs, is that not racist because they're Chinese? They have power? Oh, if you go to China and call them slurs, is it not racist because they have power? Well, of course it is, right? And this is the thing, right? Is that, again, this is something I think with a lot of types of like philosophy that people have, is that the amount of ways that you can make it not make sense is directly related to how good the philosophy is. So the best philosophy is the philosophy that makes sense in every single way. And the worst philosophy is the philosophy that only makes sense theoretically. And I think this is the case. This is theoretical philosophy. Do you think classism first and it leads to racism, or are they interchangeable? I think the U.S. has had a huge problem with racism. It always has. It probably always will, just like every other country does. Like Japan has problems with racism. China does. I'm sure Russia does. I'm sure places in Europe do. Like, I'm sure Africa has racism problems. I'm sure the Middle East does. Everywhere has racism problems because people are racist. Like, there's nothing really unique about American racism that's special about us. The truth is, people do this everywhere. It's not special. Racism never left. Well, to be fair, I think that we've done a lot to get rid of it.
I was going to say, it's a lot better, obviously.
It's weird how people don't take that into consideration of, like, how much work that, like, our cultures put into getting rid of this stuff, too. Is racism a natural thing, though? Yeah, I think it is. I think racism is natural.
I don't think racism is natural, but I think, like, disliking other nations is. Like, if you go back, like, in the history of however bloody long, blah, 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 like, before we all sat... Could you move now, Scott? Thank you. Before we all sat here on our computers playing our little nerdy games and everything, what were countries doing? They were going to war with other nations to try and conquer other areas. If they tried to discover a new land and there was somebody in the way, they would conquer those people to take that land. Like, I think it all stems from that. So I don't think racism itself is natural. I think people are naturally selfish and self-involved, so if you aren't as good as them, they will discriminate against you. And I don't think that's to do with racism. I think that's just to do with people being arseholes. And then when it comes to not liking other cultures, I think that is where racism is born. So the actual word racism and, like, white person not liking black person or white person not liking Asian, I don't think it's to do with racism being natural. I think it's to do with our core all the way back in history when we would conquer other lands. And so we've kind of inherited this thought process of we are British or we are American or we are Chinese, and therefore everyone else is not us, and we could potentially conquer them or they could potentially conquer us. And I think that is the natural, like, core of it, rather than it just being the racism. I think that's just a man-made thing that we've made to label the fact that we've created this nasty behaviour based on the history of conquering lands, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? I had Irish be racist to me for being English when I lived in Northern Ireland as a kid. I mean, when you were over in Ireland, I'm not sure which part. So you have to, like, bear with me whilst I'm hazy on the details. But my brother was based over there when he was in the army. So he would have been in Northern Ireland. Now, I don't know if this happened in Ireland or Northern Ireland, but there are two areas, two types of people over there. And quite often the English people would belong to this one group, and then this other group would be, like, primarily Irish people. And if the English people that belonged to... I can't think of what the two groups were called. If somebody from group one wandered into the area... Catholics and Protestants, thank you. I had the word Protestant in my head, and I was like, I'm not going to say that. Thank you for the follow. I was like, I'm not going to say that in case I'm wrong and I look stupid or I mispronounce it or something. Yes. So if a Protestant went into a Catholic kind of run area, for example, there actually was this situation. I've read this news article, it was horrific, and I've never read anything since then because it upset me so much. But there was this person who was in a car. They were driving through, let's say, the Catholic area, and they took a wrong turning and they wound up in the Protestant one. I'm not sure which way around it was, but that kind of thing. Took a wrong turning, and they were recognised to not belong in that area, and their car was surrounded and smashed to pieces, and they were dragged from their car, and they were beat, and they did not survive. And I was mortified when I read this, literally mortified. And all because they took a wrong turning and they went into an area they weren't allowed in. Like, do you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't think racism itself is a natural thing. I think people are naturally like that, and we've just labelled it. But it's like that it literally stems all the way back to, I don't know, hundreds of years ago, when you had like civil wars going on. Like, you look at what did it used to get called, Yugoslavia, and then they had like a whole war within their own area, and then they broke up into their own little countries and stuff. Like, that happened back in like the 90s or something. Like, it happens everywhere, but I do think that it comes from the base of conquer, like that's it. Like, and we've just now labelled it because I think we've gotten meaner over time. I think we're nastier, more spiteful now, whereas back then it was more like, man must take country. Do you know what I mean?
Really, it's just people that are exercising some form of own group bias. Own group bias is basically like where you're going to provide preference and, more, you'll be more sympathetic to people that are like you. Like, for example, like me versus like other guys and other guys, women and other women. I don't know, black people and other black people, white people and other white people, people of one religion and people of the same religion. Like, that's just own group bias. So yeah, of course that's what happens, because you think about it evolutionarily, and of course those are the people that evolved because they were the ones that stuck with each other. It's just logically what makes sense. Now, we live in a world where that's not as relevant nowadays, but that doesn't mean that millions of years of evolution just suddenly disappear. Does anyone actually disagree with that take? Well, there are some people that do, and the people that do also probably believe in astrology. So it's not important to consider what their disagreement is, because it's not coming from a logical vehicle. It's coming from a moron. The simplest example of dumb group bias is the console wars between Xbox and PlayStation. Yep, there it is. Well, you and I disagree with most of what you say. I feel like you're just demonizing them. I spoke to people who think like that. A lot of them have friends and were successful in school. At least that's my personal experience. I don't know. I'm sure some of them do. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not like, of course, all of them are like that. But at the end of the day, these people are toxic, and I'm glad they get shit on. I think that, in general, you should fight against any type of racism. And I understand that, like, again, people sometimes get mad at me for saying stuff like this, and, or saying other stuff. I want to make it very clear. This is, like, a general, like, viewpoint that I have. I think people should be able to do and say and think what they want. And I am generally against judgmental people trying to push an agenda on anyone else, regardless of what that agenda is, as long as it's not something that's hurting people. So it doesn't matter whether it's religious rules. I push against religious rules. I think this basically is a religion because it's, I mean, honestly, like, the Bible is more logical than this is. Let's be real. I'd be more likely to believe a burning bush than believe this. It doesn't even, a burning bush makes more sense. It's a cult. Yeah, exactly. And so year 2024, uninhibited racism is kept alive by the anti-racists. Well, I think people are starting to see how ridiculous this is. Apparently you can't be racist towards white people. Racism is racism. Yes, every normal person thinks this. And so, yeah, these are the people. I just want to let you guys know, these are the people who are defending Sweet Baby. There are people who unironically think that it is good to be racist against white people. There it is.
I just wish the whole, like, agenda in every way would just, like, go away. Do you know what I mean? Like, whatever it is. Like, I'm sick of, like, everywhere you turn, you have to think a certain way or speak a certain way or act a certain way. Because if you don't, then you're discriminating against. Yeah, I just wish that it would all, obviously this sounds like an obvious thing to say, but I just wish it would all go away. Like, I wish companies like this didn't exist, like this Sweet Baby Inc. I wish they didn't run around, like, trying to interject their the woke agendas on everybody. I wish that the whole woke thing wasn't here. I wish that we weren't teaching young children about sexuality from the age of 5. I don't think that they should be. I think that should be something that's taught during sex education, not when they are 5 years old and you confuse the absolute bejesus out of them. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that, like, we should be forcing obesity, body positivity everywhere. Like, I just don't. And that's not because of looks. That's because of the health risks that come with it. I just wish that, like, back in the day, the most thing we raised awareness for was things that actually mattered, like domestic violence from either male or female, like the chances of being RAPE when you're out and stuff like that. Like, all of those things where people are actually getting hurt. I don't think that you need to make TV shows made up of entire gay or bisexual people to prove a point that it's okay to be gay or bisexual. It's just okay. Have one person, sure, but don't make them be like their relationship be the primary focus. Like, for example, I'll give you for instance, when Big Brother, so you might not like Big Brother, but just go with me. When Big Brother picks their contestants, you can literally see that they go down a checklist to make sure they have one of every type of person. So you'll have one bigger person, you'll have one gay person, you'll have one gender fluid person, you'll have one special needs person, you'll have one of colour person, you'll probably have, what else could you have? One old person. And you know what? It's actually hilarious. We were watching Celebrity Big Brother, and I'm slightly off topic, but you'll get where the point is going. We were watching Celebrity Big Brother, and there were literally no straight men in there, because once they had, I think there was one, but once they had ticked all of their agendas, there were lots of straight women. There were straight women in there, and there were oldies. And there's like a guy who dresses very feminine, even though he is completely straight and has a girlfriend. Then you had an autistic gay guy. And like I said, don't get me wrong, it's fine. Those people, they're actually quite funny. There's like a really loud gay guy, blah, blah, blah. They're actually they're really they're fine people. But you can literally see how they have ticked down the list to the point where there were no normie guys in there. Do you know what I mean? And it just kind of drives me crazy, because it means that the whole show is built up on how can they prove that they are not discriminating against any category of people. Do you know what I mean? It just kind of proved it, and the fact, and it just shows the status that men have these days. Back in the day, they used to be riding high and all that, and I know that, blah 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 blah. But it just goes to show that actually men are slowly getting the lowest status beneath everything else, because the fact that all these other agenda people were put in Big Brother, and yet no normie men were put in there. Do you know what I mean? And it happened in the last normal Big Brother, not Celebrity, the last normal Big Brother as well. And I remember the last season of Big Brother that happened before they stopped for a while. And the whole thing was just agenda after agenda after agenda. And it's I just don't think that anywhere needs to do that. If you genuinely think that gay people are equal, you don't need to say it. I very, 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 very rarely, unless I'm talking in one of these rants, mention that I like girls as well as guys. Because I have a boyfriend, a fiance, and therefore it is irrelevant to mention it. Do you know what I mean? So it just drives me crazy that it's just kind of shoved everywhere you go. It just doesn't need to be. And therefore it doesn't need to be put into the computer games. Like I said, you don't need to have a gay orc. Because orcs are just mindless, I go smash and kill things. Ogres are just mindless. It just doesn't need to be done. I remember there was a thing in World of Warcraft, this was quite a few years back. So the ogres in WoW are all male. And there was a big hoo-ha at one point about the fact that there were no female ogres. How dare they discriminate against the females because there were no female ogres. But there was no reason for there to be female ogres because the ogres were male. That was just it. Do you know what I mean? Like, that was just it. That was the monster they created. And these monsters happen to all be males. Just like the Tooth Fairy is always female. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, why is there not a male Tooth Fairy? Do you know what I mean? But, like, in WoW, there were no female ogres. And I don't know if they ever added in a female. I don't know if they did that. That's wrong. Ogres aren't all male. It's just that the female ogres were... Whoa, do the cooking. Yes, that's where they were. That's where they were. They were at home beating the bedspreads and stuff. But yeah, like I just don't. It just drives me crazy, and like it puts me off watching or being involved in like a movie or TV show where I can see that they've kind of gone gender crazy with it. Where they've kind of gone agenda crazy with it. It literally puts me off watching it. What was that? What was that? The TV show I'm talking about? Was it? I think it was Wolfpack. Definitely not The Order. And yeah, in this Wolfpack show, every single person was like, apart from maybe I think like only 10% of the teenagers were like straight. Every other person had like an agenda, and it was so prevalent that it was all that was happening in the show. This company is crap for what they do, but then it's not just this company's fault. It's like society's fault. And like I said, you're not allowed to kind of argue against it because then that makes you a hater. And it's like, no, I just don't want it shoved down my throat. Like, go make like a cute little gay love in your house. You don't need to prove to me that you're gay by doing it on the screen in front of everybody. Unless it's relevant to the story at that time. Do you know what I mean?
It's sad. It really is. People are tired of being told how to think. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Absolutely. White isn't a race.
That was gross.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Yeah. What are you talking about? It's the same as black as a race. Is
someone
every
just
black
said
person
white
from
isn't
Africa?
a race.
No. But people refer to all black people as the same thing. Yeah, of course it is.
Well, he needs to ban him from his
You're
chat.
not going to try to like fool me with this kind of stuff and try to intellectualize it. We clearly know what you're talking about. Should we ban for that? Yeah, guys.
Welcome, Rupert.
And this is, again, this is
Rupert.
what I was saying before about how this is intellectualizing
hey, Cammy.
common sense.
How are you guys?
You're not going to do this, okay? Like, every most normal, reasonable people see what's happening, and they disagree with it. I mean, I can see where it's come from. It's incredibly dishonest to say it morally correct on white people as a whole, though, same as any other race. Yeah, and I think that and this is the problem, is that even monkeys can perceive unfairness. Monkeys can. You're not going to convince people at large that this obviously unfair thing isn't unfair. It clearly is, and everybody sees it. I'll read a few comments about this, but overall, and the worst part about this is that she's right in a lot of cases, that it's not just this company that's doing it, and people are attributing all of this stuff to this one company. It's not necessarily just them.
Everywhere.
It is a lot of people doing it. However,
that still makes
the
the
goal
company
that she has is
butt
not a
munches.
good goal. They want a way to silence dissent in any way.
TLDR, basically everyone's blaming a company called Sweet Baby Inc. for forcing game developers they work with to have agendas in their games. And this is kind of like, this woman wrote this article kind of saying that she like, in her article, she started saying that you can't be racist to white people, and it's kind of like a discussion on whether this company is at fault for agenda pushing, whether it's a race one or blah, 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 blah. And so we went off onto a tangent about different agenda topics. Fabulous says, just got back from the dentist. Ooh, how'd it go? Is that for the wisdom teeth? But yeah, I think it's like, it's stupid to blame this one company, because like I said before, if it was this one company, you would only see agendas in computer games. But you see in TV shows and movies, which obviously this company has nothing to do with. So it's just the current trendy thing these days is to prove you're not transphobic, homophobic, racist, any other ist and phobic and stuff. Do you know what I mean? Every company's just trying to prove. But unfortunately, I think it drives me a bit crazy how people don't see that, like, if you have, like, we'll take the women empowerment one, for example. Women and equality, pushing them to a higher level doesn't mean that it's becoming, they're getting like equality. Do you know what I mean? It means that in the end, if you keep pushing them up, men will go back down. So you're just creating the same problem in reverse. So it's like, I just think all the time, if you have to force an agenda, you're creating a new agenda for the future. Like, so if you force, let's say, we'll use the body positivity with obesity one. So you all know my stance on healthy body. I believe healthy body, healthy mind, and you should like take responsibility for your body, and like it's better for you and your children to have a healthy body, because one, you'll live longer, you'll enjoy your life more because you won't hurt and stuff like that. Like, it just makes logical sense of it. I don't care about what people look like. Like, there's nothing wrong with a bit like the body shape, blah 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 visually. So for me, it's all about the health of the body. And then, but if you constantly push, so there was a time when women and men got fat shamed, right? Obviously, that is not okay. You can't bully somebody because of it. So there was a time when people got fat shamed. However, now, because it's so, the agenda of allowing somebody to be comfortable in their own skin and yada yada, which obviously is great. I still believe they should be healthy bodies, but the actual being comfortable in their own skin, obviously that's great. But the agenda's been pushed so much now that most people will kind of claim victim, not most people, some people will claim victim to they can't help but be bigger. We saw it on like a TV show, right? There was a TV show, I think it was like Britain's Got Talent or something, and you had like this disabled group, and they came on and they danced and stuff, and you had all these various different types of disabilities, and one was in a wheelchair, one was had Downs, they were like all like actual disabilities, right? And then you had a girl who was just overweight. That's not a disability. She was saying how she couldn't help but be big and blah, blah, blah. It's like, but she can. There was nothing physically wrong with her, other like she didn't have anything that caused her to be overweight other than the fact that she made herself overweight. Do you know what I mean? She didn't have a hormone problem. Like, she didn't have any, like, she wasn't in a wheelchair, so therefore couldn't exercise, or like brittle bone disease, or any, I can't, like arthritis. My mum had arthritis and it messed up her, and she had a bad back and it messed up her. We had to exercise, even though she really wanted to lose weight, she could have done all this kind of stuff. And she kind of like, this girl was allowed to slot herself in with people who had actual disabilities because she was overweight. And like the whole body positivity thing, and like you're allowed to be overweight and kind of get sympathy for it and all that stuff. Like, I think that's pushed so far now that in about 10 years, mark my words, 10, 20 years, the exact same thing is going to start happening to skinny people. I went for lunch, so obviously I'm a little bit curvier now. I'm not like stick thin anymore. But the time of this story that I'm about to tell you, that literally happened to me, time of the story, I was a teeny tiny size 6 to 8. Man, I miss those days. Whereas now I'm a little bit fuller. Now I'm like a size 10 to 12 now. I'd rather go back down to a size 8. By the time that this story happened, I'm about to tell you, I was a size 6 to 8, which in American sizes is 2 to 4. I went for lunch, went for this business meeting, lunch. We were basically having a meeting, but we decided we were going to go do it in a pub. So we were having like lunch and everything. And I was on a bit of a I was like, the reason I was so slim was I was on a health kick, and I exercised all the time, and like I drank protein shakes and I ate good food, blah, blah, blah. So everyone's ordering all these beastie lunches. So they were like ordering these massive baguettes and all this food, which is fine. I do what you want. I had brought my own lunch in the form of a protein shake and like some kind of like little healthy wrap or something small, because I didn't need a big lunch because I wasn't a big girl. But what I was eating was healthy. And I was literally mocked. I was mocked at this meeting, because I was surrounded by all these women who were bigger than me. I was the only slim person there, and I was literally mocked and ridiculed in a passive-aggressive, sarcastic kind of way for the fact that I was tiny. Like, oh, you should eat more. You need to get some meat on your bones. What are you doing just drinking that? Like, no wonder you're so skinny. Like, you need to, like, it's ridiculous. Like, what are you trying to do? Lose weight? Like, how crazy is that? And literally it became this topical conversation at the table because I was sat there with my healthy food because I maintained my body weight. And it's like, it's already happening now. That's literally proof that once upon a time, let me put music back on so we've got some background noise going on here. Once upon a time, that would have happened to the bigger girl at the table. Like, oh, don't you think you've eaten enough? Oh, you don't need to eat that burger. You don't need those chips on the side, blah, 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 blah. And instead, because we now support the bigger person so much, that agenda has been pushed so much, we're going to create a new agenda where the slim people are now the marginalised people. They're going to be in the minority and they're going to be attacked for being too skinny. Oh, look how disgusting you look. Your bones are jutting out. Blah, 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 blah. And so all these agendas, you're not doing any good. Like, there is no good coming from these extreme agendas other than you're creating new ones for in 10, 20, 50 years' time. Do you know what I mean? The viewers skew so highly ready, I can see it going exactly where you say. Yeah, exactly. But I was literally ridiculed for being too skinny. Actually crazy. By other women as well, which was the worst thing. It wasn't like some man was like judging my sexy level. Like, it wasn't like some man like, oh, I prefer a bit of meat. Thank you for the follow. I prefer a bit of meat on my women. Oh, you're disgusting. All skin and bone. You got no boobs. You got no bum. Blah, blah, blah. It was other that. It was other women at the table who were mocking me. If I was there with a bunch of skinny girls and I was targeting one big girl, that would have been absolutely outrageous that we did that. But it was acceptable because I was the skinny one. So you, like I said, mark my words. In 10, 20 years' time, you're going to get the it's okay to be skinny, like, people that are going to come up. And any other agenda. It's okay to be straight. It's okay to be white. It's okay to be the gender you were born. Help me out. What other, like, big, loud agendas are there currently? It's okay to identify as a human that you were born as and not a dog. I saw that on YouTube. No, on Insta or something. It popped up today. Some girl identifies as a dog. So, all right, mate. But yeah, like, it's all just going to go full circle. Like, you're not doing any good out there. Like, technically, when I do these rants, I lose followers. So at the end of my stream today, I can absolutely guarantee you I will have at least one person who unfollows me from this. And I guarantee that person belongs to one of those agendas. Absolutely guarantee it. Even though I like to think that I'm quite diplomatic in what I say, and I never target people for any reason about themselves. I just target idiot people who are mean to other people. Do you know what I mean? But like, I will lose a follower at least today for my take on this situation. Always.